Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're plunging into a topic that's truly buzzing right now, sparking fascinating conversations and sometimes quite a bit of controversy.
Yeah.
The idea of transracial identity.
Yeah, it's a big one.
Is it genuinely possible for someone to identify as a race different from the one they were assigned at birth? I mean, it's a huge, incredibly complex question, and it really challenges our assumptions about identity.
It absolutely does. And for this deep dive, we've gone through an incredible stack of sources, really. Everything from vibrant YouTube debates and candid Reddit forums, just brimming with personal stories, to rigorous academic papers and even pilot studies exploring what transracial identity means to people. It's clear this isn't simple, you know? People are grappling with it from so many different angles.
Right. And our mission today is to pull out the essential nuggets of knowledge for you. We'll give you a shortcut, sort of, to being well-informed.
Yeah, cut through the noise a bit.
It's exactly. Helping you understand the roots of this concept, what the science says, the ethical considerations that pop up, and maybe where it might all be headed.
You should expect some genuinely surprising facts, I think.
Oh, definitely. Plenty of aha moments that might just reframe how you think about identity. Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
So to even begin to understand transracial identity, we have to start with race itself. It might seem like this fixed, ancient idea, but our sources are incredibly clear. The modern way we think about race, it's actually quite new.
Relatively speaking, yeah. It really took hold with European exploration, imperialism, colonization, starting around the 16th century.
And those early classifiers, like Linnaeus and Blumenbach back in the 17th, 18th centuries,
Yeah,
they were trying to put people into boxes, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes based on really arbitrary things like skull shapes.
exactly. And crucially, these weren't just like neutral scientific exercises. They were often hierarchical.
Placing white Europeans at the top.
Right. And they served a purpose, sometimes a very disturbing purpose, to justify power structures. Think about the subordination of African slaves, colonialism. These classifications were used to rationalize that.
That's a heavy historical context to start with.
It is, but essential to understanding the concept's origins.
Okay, so then comes modern science. And here's where it gets really interesting and maybe counterintuitive for a lot of us.
Definitely. Modern science overwhelmingly rejects the idea of distinct biological human races. That's a massive shift in thinking.
Massive. Like the Human Genome Project you mentioned, that finding more genetic variation within groups than between them.
Precisely. It means, like, if you took two random people from Europe and two random people from Africa, you'd often find more genetic differences within the European pair than you would, on average, between a European and an African individual.
Wow. That completely upends the visual shorthand we use for race.
It does. It suggests those physical traits we see, skin color, hair texture, they vary gradually, clinally, across geography. Think of it like a smooth gradient.
Not sharp, distinct boxes.
Exactly. So blood types, for instance, don't neatly map onto those visible racial lines either. Like, Europeans and Africans are genetically closer in ABO blood groups than either group is to Chinese populations.
So the takeaway is, what? Race isn't biologically real.
From a modern genetics perspective, the consensus is largely that distinct biological races are, well, biologically indefensible. It's a human invention, a social construct. By the 1970s, physical anthropology textbooks were already reversing their stance, and many biology textbooks today kind of tread carefully around the topic or avoid it.
Okay, that's a truly mind-blowing insight. It just shatters those old assumptions, doesn't it?
It really does.
But here's the kicker. Even if race isn't biologically real, its impact in the real world is undeniable, right? It's still incredibly powerful.
Absolutely. That's the paradox. Despite being a social construct, race has profound, objective, real-world consequences. It influences everything from health outcomes to the justice system, how people are profiled.
Even forensic science, when they assign a race to remains.
Yeah, even then, it's often framed as a prediction based on socially constructed categories, aligning with how society perceives race rather than some inherent biological marker.
And it's worth distinguishing race from ethnicity here, too.
Good point. Race is often tied more to those visible physical traits, however flawed that link is. Ethnicity is broader shared cultural heritage, ancestry, history, language, customs.
And societies treat these categories differently too, like the U.S. Census now allowing multiple races, moving away from the old one-drop rule.
Right. Whereas a place like Brazil has historically had dozens of more fluid racial categories based more on appearance than strict ancestry. It shows how culturally specific these things can be.
So connecting this back, even if the categories are flawed constructs.
They're still deeply embedded in our systems and power dynamics and inequality. Their impact on people's lives is undeniable.
Okay, so if race isn't biological but social, that changes the whole game, doesn't it?
It opens up a lot of questions.
Yeah, like the big one. If gender can be fluid, can race be too? Which brings us right into the phenomenon of transracial identity. How is it generally defined?
Generally, transracialism, or sometimes you hear RCTA online, is defined as an individual identifying with a race different from the one society assigned them at birth.
And the motivations seem really varied in the sources we looked at.
Hugely varied. It could be a deep-seated desire to align their internal sense of self with their external appearance, maybe a search for belonging somewhere.
Or escaping stereotypes?
Yeah, escaping stereotypes tied to their assigned race. Sometimes it's a genuine fascination with another culture, even if maybe misguided sometimes. Personal trauma can play a role, societal pressures. It's complex.
So it's definitely not just like playing dress up, right? It sounds like a profound disconnect for some people.
That's the sense you get from many accounts, a feeling that who society sees isn't who they are inside. We saw that powerful Reddit story, the person finding acceptance through a Japanese aesthetic after bullying.
Right, and people might make physical changes.
They might. Things like hair dye, makeup, tanning are common. Sometimes more extensive cosmetic surgery to alter features.
Like Oli London aiming for a K-pop look.
Exactly. Or Martina Big, the German model who identifies as Black after really extreme modifications, including very large breast implants. She even claimed her hair roots changed color and texture, which reinforced her belief.
Wow.
And there are others, like the Reddit user Gazi Popan, born white American but feeling deeply connected to Japanese culture, using hair dye and makeup to achieve that look.
And they find community online.
Yeah, online spaces seem important. Subreddits like Diracial Community, Black to White Transracials, websites like Trace Info, they offer places to share stories, find support, connect.
Okay, so inevitably, this draws comparisons to transgender identity. Our sources do that a lot.
They do, and on the surface, you see the parallel. An internal sense of self clashing with an assigned identity, seeking alignment.
That's the argument from similarity, right?
Yep.
If we accept one, maybe we should accept the other.
That's the argument some people make. But it gets complicated fast because there are also really key differences.
Like societal acceptance, that seems like a big one.
Huge. There's growing, though obviously still contested, acceptance of gender fluidity. You see it in legal shifts, medical approaches changing for intersex individuals, even things like school restroom policies.
All right.
But transracial identity usually faces much stronger resistance, skepticism, even outright hostility.
And the perceived basis is different too. Gender identity being more about the brain, neurochemistry.
Yeah, described as rooted in the brain, distinct from biological sex. Whereas, as we've discussed, the biological basis for race is seen as weak. Race is primarily understood as social.
That point about racial oppression being intergenerational really struck me in the sources. This idea that it's passed down, creating this legacy of systemic disadvantage, historical trauma, like the Canadian residential schools example. Critics argue that choosing to identify into a group with that specific inherited burden, well, it's different.
It is a core criticism that it potentially trivializes a very specific kind of historical weight that doesn't have a direct equivalent in gender discussions.
And passing. Historically, racial passing was seen as deceptive, right?
Often, yeah. Based on the idea of a fixed essential self you were betraying. But there's also this interesting counter-idea emerging, a more performative understanding.
Suggesting all identity is kind of a performance.
Yeah.
Something we do.
Kind of, yeah. Like how you perform professional at work versus friend socially. Doesn't mean it's fake, but it highlights the constructed, fluid nature of how we present ourselves. It's a different lens.
That's a really interesting way to frame it. What about privilege? That seems like another major point of friction.
Definitely. The argument goes, a white person identifying as, say, Black, might be seen as exercising white privilege because they could, theoretically, choose to step back into their white identity and its associated advantages if things get tough.
Which someone assigned Black at birth can't do.
Exactly. Now, One philosophical paper we saw noted that similar arguments about privilege can sometimes be made in certain transgender transitions, depending on context. But the core response is often that privilege itself is the societal problem we need to fix, not necessarily an individual barrier to identity itself. It's a complex debate.
And finally, the pathways are different. Gender transition has more established routes.
Increasingly so, yes. Medical pathways, social recognition frameworks. They exist, even if access varies. For racial transition, there just aren't widely accepted procedures or equivalent social structures.
Okay, so navigating all this brings us squarely into the controversies. The criticisms are pretty sharp.
They are. Cultural appropriation is a big one.
Right. Adopting cultural elements without understanding or respect. Reducing a culture to a costume. Only London faced that accusation a lot.
Yeah, accusations of superficiality.
Yeah.
And then there's the concern about minimizing lived experience. This is maybe the most significant one.
The idea that identifying as a member of a marginalized group diminishes the actual, often traumatic, experiences and generational struggles of people born into that group.
Exactly. That quote, you can't just adopt the fun, aesthetically pleasing parts without acknowledging the very real challenges. That sums up a major critique.
And that phrase, Michael Brown couldn't be transracial. Wow, that just cuts right through, doesn't it?
It really does. It grounds the whole discussion in the imposed, inescapable reality of race for so many.
Then there's the issue of reinforcing colorism or harmful beauty standards.
Right. Attempts to physically change appearance, skin lightening, skin darkening, can inadvertently play into colorism, that prejudice based on skin tone, often favoring lighter skin, like those historical brown paper bag clubs.
Which feeds into the whole debate about authenticity. What makes a racial identity real? Is it ancestry, culture, lived experience, just feeling it inside?
All those questions are on the table. And it leads to another tricky area, the impact on collective action and traditions.
Meaning, if someone can just choose to be, say, black without sharing the history of oppression, does that dilute things like Black History Month or arguments for reparations?
That's the concern some people raise. If racial identity becomes purely individual choice, could it undermine the collective solidarity needed to fight systemic racism, which operates based on how society imposes race, not just how individuals feel?
It creates this powerful tension. And you can see why it makes people uncomfortable. It's hard to sort through, hard to find reliable info.
Which is why diving deep like this, understanding the nuances, is so important. It requires empathy, trying to understand individual journeys.
While also seeing the bigger picture, the social and historical context.
Exactly, and being aware of potential harm. Cultural appropriation, fetishization, chasing unrealistic beauty standards, these can have really negative consequences for individuals and marginalized groups. It's a balancing act, respecting choice while protecting the vulnerable.
And we have to be careful about misinterpretations getting twisted into something dangerous.
Absolutely critical. We need to challenge destructive tribalism, that belief in your own group's inherent superiority, and firmly reject dangerous conspiracy theories.
Like the Great Replacement or white genocide theories.
Yes, those are completely unfounded, deeply racist, xenophobic narratives. They falsely claim there's a plot to eliminate white populations through demographic change. And tragically, these theories have directly inspired horrific violence.
The Buffalo shooting, the Norway attack.
It's devastating examples, and it's crucial to clarify. While statistics show people identified as white are a global minority, maybe around 11% of the world population.
That's just a demographic fact.
Right. It does not imply social vulnerability, loss of power, or some threat of subjugation, which is the false, dangerous claim these conspiracy theories make.
Okay, let's shift gears and look towards the horizon a bit. Technology. Could emerging tech actually make race obsolete?
It's a fascinating, maybe slightly sci-fi thought experiment. Think about advanced gene editing, like CRISPR or TALENs.
Stuff that could potentially alter physical traits. We link to race, skin tone, hair texture.
Exactly. If those things became malleable, choosable, would our current racial categories even hold up? What would define us then? Would new divisions just emerge based on who could afford the tech?
Huge ethical questions there.
Massive ones. And then you add in AI, nanotechnology, VR, AR, creating digital avatars of any race you want. It blurs the lines between physical and virtual selves even further.
Which connects to that powerful quote we found. How I feel is more powerful than how I was born. That feels central here.
It really captures a mood, doesn't it? This broader trend some academics call the unsettling of identities.
Meaning identities less fixed, more fluid, a negotiation.
Yeah, a negotiation between individual choice and the givenness of biology or society. Things like the fading one-drop rule, more awareness of our universal genetic mixedness. It all creates more room for people to navigate and define their identities beyond strict ancestral lines. Ancestry's authority seems to be weakening, in a way.
Wow. This deep dive has really been an eye-opener. It forces you to confront these deep beliefs, grapple with how complex identity is in our changing world,
It really does.
and it really underscores the need for open, honest conversations, even when they're uncomfortable. We need that critical thinking, that willingness to question assumptions.
And respectful communication feels like the absolute key, doesn't it? Even with sensitive, controversial topics like this. Finding common ground through empathy, remembering there's a human being with unique experiences behind every perspective.
Well said. Okay, what a journey. We went from deconstructing race itself, historically, scientifically,
Right down into the nitty-gritty of transracial identity, motivations, controversies, the comparison with transgenderism.
and even peered into the future with technology and these broader societal shifts, unsettling identity.
It's clear there are no easy answers. Transracialism is just profoundly nuanced. It demands thoughtful engagement, making us examine our own beliefs.
And talking respectfully, even when we disagree strongly.
Exactly. It's about learning to navigate these uncomfortable questions together.
So as you, our listeners, continue to ponder all this, we want to leave you with one final big thought-provoking question to chew on.
Okay.
If gene editing technology reached a point where individuals could safely, completely transform their physical racial traits, would that ultimately lead us towards a more just, equitable society? Or would it just create new, unpredictable forms of division and inequality?
Oof. That's a huge question for our future, one we'll likely be grappling with for a long time as we all try to figure out this complex terrain of identity and belonging together.
Keep learning, keep questioning, and definitely keep the conversation going. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.